When I was 14, my dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "Your sister has potential. You don't." He wasn't yelling. He wasn't even angry. He said it the same way someone might comment on the weather or ask to pass the salt. Matter of fact. Final. Like it had always been obvious to him. And now it was time I saw it too. My name's Dean. I'm 27 now, but that moment is still burned into my brain like it happened 5 minutes ago. The weird part? I didn't cry. I didn't scream or argue. I just stood there in the living room of our polished suburban house, numb, staring at the man who used to tuck me in at night before he stopped noticing I existed. My mom didn't even flinch. She nodded, folded her arms, and added, "Boarding school will keep you out of her way." Then she walked out of the room like she had just solved some logistical problem. They were talking about my older sister, Isla, 2 years older. Star athlete, straight A student, debate team captain, piano prodigy. The kind of kid whose every breath seemed to come with applause. And I wasn't. I was lanky, quiet, always sketching in my notebook, obsessed with mechanical stuff, constantly taking apart gadgets to see how they worked. I wasn't failing school, but I wasn't lighting it on fire either. And in my parents' world, if you weren't exceptional, you were disposable. I didn't understand it back then, not really. I thought I had done something wrong. That maybe I'd missed a deadline, or got caught sneaking a snack before dinner, or I don't know. I kept replaying it in my head, hoping to find the sin that made my own parents give up on me like that. But no, that was just who they were. That summer, they sent me away to Brookridge Academy. It was a stiff, brick-lined boarding school 2 hours out of town, more prison than prep school. The uniform was itchy, the beds were hard, and the food tasted like it had been boiled in regret. They dropped me off without so much as a hug. My mom handed me a check-in envelope and said, "Make us proud, or at least don't embarrass us." My dad didn't say a word. He never even got out of the car. I remember standing by the entrance gate, watching their black BMW disappear down the gravel road, while other parents hugged their kids, took photos, cried. I felt invisible. The thing is, being invisible kind of became my superpower. At Brookridge, no one knew I was the backup child or the family disappointment. I started fixing things, projectors, laptops, the broken vending machine in the common room. I even took apart a busted printer, rewired it, and made it print faster than the brand new ones. Word spread. Teachers started giving me extra tech projects, even recommending me for off-campus internships. I kept to myself mostly, but I finally felt like I was good at something. Not flashy like Isla's trophies, but real. I never heard from my parents unless tuition was due. Not a call, not a birthday card, not a single visit over 4 years. But I stopped expecting it. Except one person did write me. Once a month, like clockwork. Grandpa Lou. He was my mom's dad, lived on the other side of the state in this beat-up little lakeside cabin. My mom called him a washed-up old goat. But to me, he was a lighthouse in the fog. His letters were always on yellowed paper, written in the same neat cursive. He told me stories about his old workshop, the engine parts he collected, the ridiculous fishing trips he went on. He said he believed in me. Every letter ended the same way. Never let anyone tell you who you are, Dean. They don't get to decide. I don't think he ever knew how much those words meant. Senior year, everything changed. I got accepted into an early entry tech program at a university on the West Coast. Fully funded. A big deal. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't see the point. I just packed my stuff after graduation, called Lou, and said, "I think I'm finally gonna build something." He laughed and said, "Damn right you are." College wasn't easy. I had to hustle for everything. I freelance coding jobs, lived off ramen, stayed up fixing other people's laptops for grocery money. But I loved it. I started designing my own AI tool for hardware diagnostics, something that could predict when machines would fail before they did. My professors were impressed. Investors started poking around. That was 5 years ago. Now I'm sitting in a modern office overlooking a skyline that used to exist only in my dreams. My startup employs 30 people. We just landed a massive partnership. Forbes did a feature on us last month. I never posted the article anywhere. I don't need a pat on the back from strangers. But I did print one copy and tuck it inside the drawer where I keep Grandpa Lou's letters. I hadn't thought about my parents in years. Then 2 weeks ago, they showed up. In my lobby. I almost didn't recognize them. My dad looked smaller, like something had deflated in him. My mom wore designer sunglasses inside and clutched her purse like it held her last hope. I had no idea how they found me. They didn't say hello. They just stood there, eyes wide, as if they'd seen a ghost. My assistant looked at me, unsure, and I said I'd handle it. We went into one of the private meeting rooms. I didn't offer them coffee. My mom sat down, but my dad stayed standing, staring at the floor like it owed him something. There was an awkward silence. Then, barely above a whisper, my mom said, "You're our last chance." That's when I knew this wasn't a visit. It was a mission, and whatever it was, it had nothing to do with me. But before I could say anything, she reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. I didn't open it. I just looked at her and asked, "Where's Isla?" My dad finally spoke. "She's not doing well." I hadn't heard Isla's name in nearly a decade. For a moment, it felt like someone had pressed rewind on a part of my life I thought I'd deleted. My first instinct was to shut the door in their faces and walk away, but I didn't. Maybe it was morbid curiosity. Or maybe, deep down, I wanted to know just how far the golden child had fallen. "She's not doing well," I repeated, leaning back in my chair, arms crossed. Did she run out of scholarships, or just attention? My mom flinched, but I didn't care. I wasn't in a forgiving mood. "She made a mistake," my dad said, his voice low, still not meeting my eyes. "Got involved with some people. A bad investment, a lawsuit. There was a guy, too. He took everything and left." I blinked. "Everything?" My mom nodded. "Her savings, her apartment, even the car we bought her after graduation. She's staying with us now." I raised an eyebrow. "You're saying the prodigy is back in the nest?" "She's lost," my mom said, almost tearfully. "She's just lost. And we thought maybe, just maybe, you could help her get back on her feet." I stared at them. The same two people who packed me off to boarding school like I was some kind of defective part. Now they were sitting in my office, asking me to bail out the daughter they spent their whole lives worshiping. I should have laughed. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because this was the part of the story where things really began to twist. "You want money?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Is that it?" "No," my mom said too quickly, before softening her tone. "Not exactly. Just support. You have resources, connections. You could get her a job, something to stabilize her. You want me to hire her?" My dad looked up at that. "You owe this family something, Dean." That was it. The breaking point. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the table. But inside, something cracked open. Something I'd been holding shut for over a decade. I leaned in slightly, so they couldn't pretend they missed a single word. "I owe this family," I said slowly. "You didn't even send me a text when I graduated college. You didn't congratulate me when I started my company. I'm not in your family. I was your insurance policy, your backup plan." "That's not fair," my mom started, but I cut her off. "No, what wasn't fair was what you said to me when I was 14. Remember that? Your sister has potential. You don't. You didn't send me to boarding school because you thought it would help me. You sent me away because I was in her way." Silence. "I built everything without you. I fixed things so other people could see I was worth something. And now that your star child has burned out, suddenly I'm useful." My dad's jaw clenched. "We didn't come here to fight. No, you came here because you're out of options." The air in the room turned thick. My mom shifted in her chair, clearly uncomfortable. "Dean, your sister is family." "So was I said. I stood up. The conversation was over. At least in my mind. "I can't help her," I said flatly. "You need to leave." My mom's eyes welled up, and for a moment, I wondered if they were real tears or just another performance. She didn't stand. She just sat there, staring at the envelope on the table. "Dean," she said softly, "you don't understand how hard it's been. For all of us." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I opened the door and motioned toward it. My assistant, God bless her, was already nearby with that look people get when they're unsure if something is a family drama or a hostage negotiation. They left, eventually. My mom looked back once, just before the elevator closed. My dad didn't. The envelope stayed on the table. I didn't touch it for 2 days. When I finally opened it, it was worse than I expected. It wasn't just a plea for help. It was a full breakdown of Isla's debts, expenses, and an itemized plan for how I could absorb her into my business. It read like a corporate acquisition proposal, except instead of a company, it was my sister. Salary expectations, benefit requirements, even a relocation allowance. The final page was the kicker. It was a letter from Isla herself. No apology. No acknowledgement of how she treated me growing up. Just one sentence. "Mom and Dad said you're doing well. I hope you'll do the right thing." I couldn't believe it. The entitlement. The gall. This wasn't just them asking for help. This was them expecting it. I sat at my desk for a long time after that, thinking back through all the little moments I had tried to forget. Like the time Isla deliberately broke my laptop when I was 16 because I wouldn't let her borrow it. My parents laughed it off. You shouldn't be so possessive, Dean. Or when she sabotaged my science project, dumped water in the battery housing the night before the fair. I came home with nothing. She came home with a medal for her piano recital. No one said a word about what happened to me. At every family dinner, she was the center of attention. When I tried to talk about something I was working on, my dad would sigh and say, "Let's not bore everyone, Dean." And my mom, she'd smile tightly and steer the conversation back to Isla's achievements. I remembered one night, a few months before they shipped me off, when I stayed up all night fixing a busted stereo I found in the garage. I wanted to show my dad. Just once, I wanted him to say good job. But when I brought it into the living room and hit play, the music came out crisp and perfect, and he didn't even look up from his newspaper. "You shouldn't waste your time on junk," he said. So I stopped showing them anything. And now, after all these years, they wanted to hand their broken daughter off to me and act like it was the natural order of things? No, absolutely not. But it didn't stop there. 3 days after their visit, I got a call from my grandfather's lawyer. That's when the second betrayal hit me. Grandpa Lou had passed away 3 months earlier. I didn't even know. No one called me. No letter. No email. Nothing. The lawyer apologized and said my contact info had only recently been updated through a mutual university connection. Apparently, Lou had tried to reach me before he passed, but by then he was in a care home, barely able to write. I felt something sink inside me. Lou was the only family who ever believed in me, and I didn't even get to say goodbye. But that wasn't all. The lawyer said Lou left a letter for me. A real one. Not some generic will or dry document. When I picked it up, it was sealed in the same kind of yellowed envelope he always used. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside, in his familiar script, he wrote, "Dean, I always knew you'd make something of yourself. I'm proud of you. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I just hope your heart is still open, because you're better than them. But if they come crawling back, don't forget what they did. Don't forget who you are. They made their choice. You get to make yours now. Love, Lou." I folded the letter and sat with it in my lap for a long time. And then I made a decision. Not just about Isla, not just about my parents, but about everything. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to post a rant online. I was going to do something they'd never expect. But before I could put my plan into motion, something else happened. Something I didn't see coming. A new email. From Isla. No subject line. Just 2 lines of text. "Can we talk?" I know what they said. But there's more to the story. Please. I didn't open Isla's attachment right away. I couldn't. After everything, after the years of being overlooked, after the stunt my parents just pulled, after learning that the only person who ever gave a damn about me died, without me even knowing, I felt like I was standing in the middle of an earthquake that had been rumbling beneath me my whole life. The foundation I'd built for myself was still there, but suddenly, everything felt fragile, tilted, unsteady. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel in control. I sat in my apartment that night. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek black counters, minimalist furniture, all of it purchased piece by piece after my company turned its first profit. The place should have felt like an accomplishment, but it just felt cold. I opened a bottle of scotch I'd been saving for a special occasion and took a long, slow sip. The city lights below flickered like the stars I used to stare at through the cracked windows of my dorm room. Back when I dreamed of nights like this, I used to think this version of me, successful, respected, unbothered, would finally feel whole. Instead, I felt like I was watching someone else's life from behind glass. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on Isla's email again. Just 2 lines. "Can we talk?" I know what they said, but there's more to the story. Please. And then the attachment, a scanned document, poorly lit, as if taken in a rush with a shaky phone. At first glance, it looked like a contract, legal jargon, signatures, a few stamped pages. But as I read further, a slow, sick realization started to spread through me. It was a custodial trust agreement, signed by my grandfather. And the beneficiary wasn't me. It was Isla. The trust had been established the same year I left for boarding school, tied to a series of investments Lou had made years earlier, small cap stocks, old bonds, and some stake in a property venture near the lake house. The value wasn't jaw-dropping, but it was sizable, enough to make a difference in anyone's life. But there was a clause, a transfer clause. It allowed for the trust to be reassigned under familial advisement before the beneficiary turned 21. And judging by the signatures, my mother, Lou's legal power of attorney at the time, had used that clause. She reassigned the trust to Isla. I stared at the document, numb. This wasn't just about favoritism. This wasn't just about being ignored. This was theft. And it wasn't just emotional anymore. It was financial, legal, calculated. And Isla knew. I should have been furious, but what I felt was worse, empty. Like something vital had been scooped out of me without my permission. For all the progress I had made, the startup, the independence, the validation, I still somehow ended up being the forgotten one. Even my grandfather, who loved me, had unknowingly left me in the hands of the same people who had always chosen her. I didn't reply to Isla's message. I didn't answer her follow-up 3 days later, or the one after that. I went silent, and so did she. But inside, I wasn't still. I was unraveling. The days that followed were a blur of barely touched meals, skipped meetings, and a growing feeling that I was a fraud. My assistant pulled me aside after I missed a product briefing. "You okay?" she asked gently. "You've been off." I nodded, lied, said I was just tired. But I wasn't tired. I was done. Done pretending I was unaffected. Done pretending I'd outgrown the damage they did. The truth was, I hadn't healed. I had just escaped. And now they were clawing their way back in. It all came to a head 2 weeks later, when I snapped at one of my lead engineers during a team call. Something small, just a missed deadline on a minor feature. But I exploded. I saw myself losing control, saw the eyes of my team flicker with discomfort, but I couldn't stop. I logged off mid-meeting, slammed my laptop shut, and sat in the dark for hours. I hit rock bottom that night. I took a long walk through the city. No destination, no music, just the sound of my footsteps on wet pavement and the distant hum of traffic. I ended up in front of an old hardware shop, one I used to frequent during college. It was closed, but I stood there, staring through the window at rows of wires, toolkits, old radios. That's when I remembered the first thing I ever built that actually worked. A homemade radio transmitter, jury-rigged from spare parts and salvage components. I'd used it to pick up weird AM broadcasts in the middle of the night. I was 15. No one cared. No one even asked what I was working on. But I had. And that mattered. I went home, pulled out an old cardboard box from the back of my closet. Inside were parts, some of them decades old, others from a hobby project I'd never finished. I spent the next few nights piecing something together. Not for work, not for money, just because I needed to remember who I was before they broke me. It was a dumb little side project, a device that could detect water leaks using sound frequency changes. Simple, almost childish, but I loved it. It gave me something to hold on to, something real. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a trip back to Brookridge. The school had changed. New buildings, new administration. But the old dorms were still there, including the one I used to live in, Building C, Room 314. I stood outside for a while before one of the staff approached me. When I told her who I was, she smiled. "You're Dean?" We still tell the story about the vending machine. Apparently, my reputation had outlived me. She gave me a short tour, introduced me to the new engineering teacher. They were running a makerspace now, 3D printers, soldering stations, programmable kits. She asked if I'd ever be interested in talking to the students. Just an hour. A Q&A. I said yes. It wasn't much, but something shifted in me that day. I wasn't just a name in a Forbes article. I was a kid who fixed things. A kid who built his own future, even when no one else believed in him. And maybe I wasn't broken. I came back to the city with a new focus. I took a step back from the company, not to quit, but to breathe. I promoted my lead engineer, took 2 weeks to rest, then came back with a new prototype in hand, the leak detector. We added a few features, turned it into a pitch, and 1 month later, we had a new line of home utility products under development. Simple, affordable, efficient. It felt good. Not flashy, not headline-worthy, but honest. During that time, I also met someone. Her name was Avery. Graphic designer, wicked smart, dry sense of humor that cut through my walls like nothing else. We met at a product launch event. She wasn't impressed by my resume. Said the real test was whether I could cook pasta without burning it. Reader, I could not. But she stuck around. And for the first time in forever, I had someone in my life who didn't expect anything from me except for me to be me. I told her about my family. Not all at once. Not everything. But enough. She didn't try to fix it. She just listened. One night, while we were sitting on my balcony eating takeout, she said something that stuck with me. You don't owe them forgiveness, Dean, but you owe yourself peace. I didn't know how to respond to that. Not right away, but the idea lodged itself in my mind like a seed. That's when I opened Isla's last message again. It had been nearly a month. I didn't expect her to respond after all the silence, but I hit reply anyway. What's the full story? She replied the next day. Meet me. 1 hour. No parents. Just me. We met at a coffee shop on the east end of the city. She looked different. Not broken, but not the flawless, polished version of herself I remembered, either. There were bags under her eyes. She had lost weight. She looked like someone who had been carrying a secret too long. She didn't waste time. I didn't know about the trust until last year, she said. Not really. Mom and Dad told me Grandpa Lou left me something for college. They didn't tell me it was your name on the original paperwork. I studied her face. But you accepted it. I was 17. I believed them. And by the time I found out the truth, I was already deep in the hole. I confronted them. They said they redirected it for the good of the family. That you didn't need it because you were always off in your own world. They said Grandpa would have understood. My jaw tightened. I'm not telling you this to ask for money, she said. I just wanted you to know that I'm not proud of what happened. But I didn't orchestrate it. I was a pawn, too. Just a better-dressed one. Why now? I asked. Why reach out after all this time? She looked down at her coffee. Because I thought maybe. You were the only one left who wouldn't lie to me. I didn't know if I believed her. But something in her voice, quiet, trembling, tired, sounded genuine. Still, I had spent a lifetime being second to her. And if she thought this was going to be some tearful reunion, some forgive and forget moment, she had another thing coming. I didn't forgive her. Not right away. When we left the coffee shop, Isla looked at me like she wanted something more. Maybe a hug, maybe closure. But I just gave her a nod and walked away. I had heard what I needed to hear. She was right about one thing. She was a pawn. But unlike me, she'd been a willing one. I didn't go home that night. I went to the lake house. Yeah, that lake house. The one Grandpa Lou used to write to me about. The one my mom called a rotting money pit after he died. I hadn't been there in years. The family had let it go to ruin, said it was too expensive to maintain. But I had quietly bought the property from the estate a year earlier, right after the company turned its first major profit. I didn't tell anyone. The place was still worn down, weather-beaten shingles, paint peeling off the porch railings, but it was mine. It felt like the last untouched part of my childhood. No cameras, no investors, no high-rises humming outside the window, just trees, water, wind, and the ghost of the only man who ever believed in me without needing a reason. I unlocked the rusted front door and stepped inside. The air smelled like cedar and dust. Old memories clung to the corners, faded photographs, a broken fishing rod, Lou's favorite recliner still dented in the same spot. I lit a fire in the stone fireplace and sat on the floor, flipping through the box of letters he'd written me during boarding school. I had kept every single one. I read them all again. Every page was filled with encouragement. Not empty praise, but real words. Things like, proud of how you fixed that projector. Took me a month to learn that when I was your age. Or, keep making things. Don't let the world turn you into a spectator. Those weren't just letters. They were blueprints. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. And this time, I wasn't going to fix things. I was going to rebuild the whole damn structure on my terms. The first person I called was my lawyer, Mina. Sharp as a scalpel and just as precise. She used to work corporate mergers before switching to tech startups. We'd worked together on a few contracts, but this was personal. I need to look into a custodial trust that was reassigned about a decade ago, I told her. You're not asking if I can, you're asking how quickly I can, she said, without missing a beat. Who messed with you? Family. Even better, she said dryly. Send me what you have. I forwarded Isla's scanned documents, along with a few backup files I pulled from the county records office. Mina called me an hour later. This is a mess, she said, scrolling through the PDFs. Your grandfather set up a trust in your name, and your mother, who held his PA, Transferred it before you turned 21. That's legal, if she could prove it was in your best interest. But get this, she never filed a court notice. No beneficiary notification. No advisement record. She covered her tracks badly. Can we reverse it? With the right documentation and pressure? We can nuke it. It was the first real fire I'd felt in weeks. Start drafting, I said. I want every possible path outlined. While she worked on the legal front, I turned to something far more delicate, my public image. Up until now, I had played things quiet. My startup wasn't flashy. We didn't do loud product launches or influencer campaigns. But now, I needed a little spotlight. Not to boast, but to bait. I called in Darren, my marketing guy. Scruffy, brilliant, and borderline addicted to chaos. I want to do a profile piece, I told him. He frowned. Thought you hated those. I do, but I need the right kind of attention. Something about legacy. Family roots. You know, humble genius makes good. He leaned back in his chair, gears already turning. You want to look like the prodigal son. No, I said. I want to look like the rightful heir. Darren grinned. Got it. Let me call the editor at TechSphere. The article dropped 2 weeks later. From boarded-up lake house to tech pioneer. How Dean Maddox built an empire with no help but a toolbox. We included photos of the lake house, restored just enough to look nostalgic, not pretentious. Shots of me working in the barn-turned-lab, a few references to my grandfather's influence. There was a paragraph about how my family didn't see the vision and how I was left to chart my own course. We didn't name names, but the implication was thick enough to spread on toast. Within days, I got a call from my mother. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. Her voice was tight, controlled. Dean, we read the article. It's misleading. Your sister is very upset. Please call us back so we can discuss how to fix this. Fix what exactly? The part where I told the truth? I didn't respond. Instead, I kept setting things in motion. Isla reached out next. Her tone was different this time. Less pleading, more hesitant. Like she knew something was happening, but didn't know what. I saw the article. You look happy, I almost replied. Almost. But I was too busy making my next move. Through Mina, I requested a formal audit of the trust. We filed for a court review under fraud suspicion. Since my name had been the original beneficiary and I hadn't been notified of any changes, we had standing. Mina found 2 separate accounting inconsistencies, withdrawals that didn't match reported expenses. It wasn't just favoritism anymore. It was fraud, and I wasn't the only one who needed to know. I sent Isla an email. No subject line, just one sentence. Check your bank statements from 2018. She replied 3 hours later. What did they do? I called her. That conversation was strange, emotional, muted. She was sitting in her car when she answered. I could hear the engine humming. She told me she checked the statements. She hadn't made those withdrawals. Our parents had. They used her accounts to funnel money out of the trust. Lied to her about managing the taxes and covering college fees. She never questioned it. She thought they were helping. They were helping themselves. I thought they protected me, she said quietly. Turns out I was just the more convenient puppet. There was a pause. I'm sorry, Dean. For all of it. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I needed to say it. I believed her. Not because I wanted to. Because the pain in her voice was the kind you don't fake. I told her about the audit. The court filing. The fact that, if this played out right, not only would the trust be restored to me, but there could be legal consequences for what Mom and Dad did. She didn't try to talk me out of it. Instead, she asked if she could help. I don't want to cut, she said. I just want to be free of them. So I gave her a task. One that would require something she hadn't done in a long time. Honesty. Together, we crafted a written statement for the court. Isla's confession. Every detail she remembered. Every time they forged her signature. Every dollar she thought was hers, but wasn't. She didn't hold back. She attached her bank records, emails, voicemails from our mom. The whole file was over 80 pages long. We submitted it anonymously through Mina's office. And then we waited. While the legal machine began to churn, I focused on the lake house. It had always been the background of the story. Now, I wanted to make it the center. I converted the barn into a tech incubator. Not just for my company. For young inventors. Kids like me. Outsiders. Tinkerers. The weird ones who didn't fit into AP classes, but could build a rocket out of spare parts. We called it the Lou Project. I funded the first year myself. And we launched it with a quiet press release. No quotes from me. Just a photo of Lou's old recliner and a plaque that read, "Fix what they break. Build what they won't." Applications tripled in a week. One of the kids, 16, glasses, nervous hands, told me it was the first time anyone said he was good at something. I almost cried. Not because I was proud, because I remembered being him. 2 months after we filed, the court issued a preliminary judgment. A full investigation was underway. My parents were notified, and for the first time in my life, they were afraid of me. The fallout didn't come all at once. It arrived like a slow-moving avalanche, quiet at first, then deafening. By the time my parents realized what was happening, it was already too late to stop it. And the best part? I never raised my voice. I never made threats. I didn't need to. I just let the truth speak. It started with a single letter. A court summons, hand-delivered to my parents' doorstep on a crisp fall morning. Mina sent me a photo of it from the courthouse logs, my mother's signature scrawled next to the receipt. The envelope bore the official stamp of the state's Civil Litigation Department, fraudulent mismanagement of minor trust. She called me the next day. For times. I didn't answer. Then a voicemail, her voice trembling. "Dean, please, this can't be happening. We didn't know. Your grandfather never explained. This is a misunderstanding. We just need to talk." But there was no misunderstanding. They stole from a trust in my name. They funneled it through Isla under the guise of supporting her future while conveniently padding their own accounts. Mina's audit traced over $82,000 in unaccounted withdrawals, money they'd used to renovate their kitchen, lease a new SUV, and even cover a failed real estate flip that lost thousands. The trust wasn't just reassigned. It was plundered. And now, with Isla's statement and banking records submitted under seal, there was no cover story left to spin. 3 weeks later, the court froze their accounts. That's when my father finally broke his silence. He showed up at my office, uninvited, unannounced. I saw him through the glass doors, pacing nervously, holding a manila folder like it might shield him from what was coming. My assistant buzzed my intercom. "Dean, your father's here again." I took a breath. "Send him in." He entered like a man walking into his own execution. Not angry, not arrogant, just hollow. He sat down across from me, opened the folder, and slid it across the table. Inside were photocopies of tax statements, transfer receipts, and a signed, handwritten apology. 2 pages long. "I didn't know Lou's trust was meant for you," he said, voice low. "I thought he split it between you and Isla." I said nothing. He swallowed hard. "When your mom suggested we shift it under Isla's name, she said you wouldn't care, that you'd never do anything with it." I was wrong to believe her. "Not just wrong," I said. "Convenient." He looked up at me. For the first time in my adult life, my father looked small. "I'm sorry. I didn't forgive him. I didn't spit in his face either. I just picked up the folder, glanced at the apology, and said, 'Tell it to the judge.'" He left without another word. The court case lasted 4 months. During that time, the media caught wind of the story, thanks, in part, to Darren doing what Darren does best. He leaked it just enough. Not to scandalize me, but to highlight what the Lou Project stood for. The narrative wasn't about betrayal. It was about integrity, about standing up, even when it's your own family on the other side of the line. Tech blogs ran headlines like, "Startup CEO exposes parents for trust fraud, launches youth program in honor of grandfather." The story spread. My inbox filled with messages, some supportive, some angry, most confused. But through it all, I stayed quiet, composed, letting Mina and the truth do the talking. My mother hired her own lawyer, tried to file a motion to dismiss, claimed misunderstanding, emotional hardship, even went so far as to say that I was using the court system to publicly humiliate her. The judge didn't buy it. When the ruling came, it was swift. They were ordered to repay the full amount stolen from the trust, plus interest. They were fined for breach of fiduciary duty and fraud. They were barred from holding power of attorney for anyone again. And they were required to issue a formal, court-approved apology to me, filed publicly and sealed in the state's legal archives. My mother cried in court. My father said nothing. I sat beside Mina, stone-faced, watching everything I'd built, my life, my peace, my name, get scrubbed clean of the dirt they'd tried to bury me in. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about principle, about justice, about reclaiming the power they took from a 14-year-old boy who was told he had no potential. And it was finally done. After the trial, I didn't go home right away. I went back to the lake house. The leaves were turning by then, casting the woods in gold and fire. I sat on the dock with a thermos of coffee, staring out over the water, Lou's final letter in my hands. I read it again, and this time, it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a blessing. Behind me, the barn doors creaked open. A handful of high school students were already filing into the Lou Project Lab. Geeks, dreamers, misfits. One of them waved to me shyly. I waved back. This was my legacy now. Not lawsuits. Not anger. Not pain. Creation. As for Isla, she moved out of our parents' house before the trial ended. Got her own apartment, took a low-level job at a startup in another city. She emailed me once more, a thank you, and a promise to stay out of my way unless I ever needed her. I didn't reply, but I didn't block her either. Some silences say enough. I haven't heard from my parents since the verdict. Last I heard, they sold their house to cover the judgment. Moved to a condo in a quieter part of town. No more BMW. No more country club brunches. No more pretending they were better than the people they threw away. It's not that I wanted to ruin them. I just wanted them to feel something. And now they do. Regret. Months later, TechSphere followed up with another article. Dean Maddox named Humanitarian Entrepreneur of the Year, from betrayal to breakthrough. They asked me for a quote. I gave them one. Just one sentence. Sometimes, the people who bury you forget you're a seed. And that was the end of it.